Why in 2018 do we so hate ourselves?
Well, I think that that paragraph does lay out a lot of it, but we've added additional sources of guilt to that are, I think, part of the modern, what would you call, manifestation of the idea that human beings have original sin and are fallen creatures. Like, we blame ourselves en masse for the depredations that the planet suffers at our hands, and let's say, without any commensurate sympathy for ourselves. I mean, there are a lot of us. We're going to hit 9 billion by midway through this century, and then it looks like things will probably level out. But that's a lot of people, and we're putting a very heavy load on planetary resources, let's say, and out competing a lot of animals. And, well, the whole environmental catastrophe story. You bloody well hear that all the time. But mostly what we're trying to do is to survive, and survive with a relative minimum of excess misery. And we're trying to do that the best way we can see fit. It's only been since the 1960s that we've started to recognize ourselves as a force of planetary significance.
Right.
100 years ago, we believed the oceans were inexhaustible. That was a conclusion that was drawn by a commission that was set up by the British Parliament. And so it's only been, not even in my lifetime. I'm older than the idea that we are a planetary shaping force, but we carry terrible guilt about the price we have to pay for existence. And you hear people say things like, well, the planet would be better off without us, which is like an absolutely horrifying thing to say. Right. But I can understand why people say it, even though I think it's a dreadful thing to say. But it's never said with any sympathy. Like, we're fighting against mortality itself, and all the suffering that goes along with that. It's not surprising that we don't do it perfectly. It's a virtually impossible load. And so if you add that existential load as the member of a species, say, with the kind of power we have, to the knowledge that each person has of their own inadequacy and failings, then we carry a heavy existential burden, with something that was very well developed by the existential psychologists of the 1950s. And people feel guilty and ashamed about being human. And then they don't treat themselves very well. Mm-hmm. And that's not helpful. It's not a solution to the problem.